The Sharks have picks and cap space, the two things you need to offer sheet.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're playing the offer sheet game. First, looking at the rules and what the sweet spot is for the Sharks. And then we have 4 players, which I think would be in that spot for the San Jose Sharks to potentially offer sheets. So let's get started by, just as a reminder, what the Sharks have, what the rules are for offer sheeting, because you can't just go willy-nilly and just start offer sheeting everybody and everything, right? And offer sheets are a really fun topic to discuss because they're just really fun, and we don't see them very often until last year when the Blues decided to get frisky. Now it feels like this off season, maybe potentially starting to see that revenue of player transaction a little bit more. So what's an offer sheet? So let's start with that. So basically an offer sheet is an ability for a team to offer a RFA, which is a restricted free agent, a contract. If they said players signs the contract, their original team has 7 days to match. So if the Sharks were to go to Evan Bouchard, right, who's a very popular RFA this offseason, and say, here's a contract for 7 years at $15 million a season, which I'm sure Bouchard would very happily sign to get $15 million a season. The Edmonton Oilers would have 7 days to match it. If they don't, the Sharks would then compensate the Oilers with draft picks. And there's a whole formula and stuff that we'll go through here in a minute. But let's look at what the Sharks have and don't have, at least, before we kind of get into this a little bit more. So the Sharks, of course, any offer sheets this offseason, the 2025 offseason, they would be the compensation would be part of the 2026 draft picks or beyond if they're one of the, like, if it's multiple first rounds, et cetera, multiple second rounds, like all that stuff, that would be part of the 2026 draft class. So the Sharks, of course, do have a lot of picks in the draft class, but they're not all their own picks. And that's the big thing with offer sheets is the compensation is your own pick. So even though the Sharks, right, you have 2 first-round picks, your own, and the Edmonton Oilers in the 2026 draft, you have 2 second-round picks, the Sharks own, and then the Colorado Avalanche. You can't be like, we're giving you the Avs pick, right? Which you expect the Avs pick to be the end of the round, right? We're not like, same thing. We'll give you the Oilers pick. Like the Oilers, we expect to be good, continue to be good next year, right? And it's probably going to be end of the first round. Like you can't be like, we're giving you that one. It has to be your own picks. The Sharks currently do not have a 3rd round pick. They traded that away as part of the Tomas Hertl deal. Or no, that one, that 3rd round, the 2026 3rd round pick was actually, part of the Erik Karlsson deal. So the Sharks traded Erik Karlsson to the Penguins as well as a 3rd round pick, and they got back Granlund, Hoffman, Ruda, and then a 1st round pick. So the Penguins actually own the Sharks 2026 3rd round pick. Not that you couldn't get it back, as we literally saw the St. Louis Blues do with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but it would be something that you'd have to do as well. So they do have their own 4th round pick, et cetera, et cetera. The Sharks, of course, also have a ton of cap space, right? They have $40 million of $43.932 million of projected cap space. And you need to spend about 20 of that just to kind of hit the cap floor going into the off season. So the offer sheet game is a way to kind of try to target younger players, right? Because most RFAs are kind of in that 23 to 26 range. So they're not regular unrestricted free agents who are usually 27 and older. These guys tend to be a little bit younger, but it does, of course, give the team who controls them, their current contract, an option to like just say, thank you for doing the hard part and negotiating. We'll just match this type of thing. So, another thing to also keep in mind, right, is with the Sharks and offer sheeting your own first round pick, not a great idea if you ask me. And let's get to the formulas here before we kind of get into that some more. So, the formula works like this. Basically, if you offer sheet and the AAV is at 1.5 million or less, there's no compensation. So like you could offer sheet like somebody, like if somebody offer sheeted Thomas Bordelot for like a 1.5 and the Sharks didn't do anything, like Thomas like you don't get any compensation. If the contract AAV is between 1.5 and 1.544424 to 2.340037 million, it's worth a third round pick. If it's between 2.34 and 4.68, the compensation is a second round pick. If it's over 4.68 to 7.02 million, the compensation is a first and a third. Again, the Sharks currently don't have a third round pick in their own third round pick in the 2026 draft. If it's over 7.02 million to 9.36 million, you have to give up a first, a second, and a third round pick. And then over 9.3 to 11.7 million, 2 firsts, 1 second, and a third. And I think you can choose like it has to be like 2 out of 3 years or something like that of the first round picks. So you could be like, 2026, we're going to skip 2027, but then we'll give you 2028, something like that. I believe it's and anything over 11.7 million, you have to give up 4 first round picks. So for the Sharks, right, who we do expect to be a little bit better next year, but probably still a lottery team, right? Picking in the top 15. What's expected to be a good draft with a lot of good talent, especially in the top 10. I don't think trading your first round pick or offer sheeting your first round pick, great idea. Me personally, unless you're getting like a super, super high end quality player. But a first round pick in next year's draft, I think is very valuable. So I think for the Sharks, if you're doing this, you're trying to target someone where you can give that Sharks second round pick, right? And again, it's still probably going to be a pretty high second round pick, but knowing you have your own first round pick, the Oilers first round pick, and then the Avs second round pick, I think you can kind of part with that pick, knowing like we're getting an NHL caliber player right now. Another thing to keep in mind, once you offer sheet someone, that money / draft pick are kind of off the table until the other team basically declares. So you can't go out and be like, I'm going to offer sheet 4 guys at $3.6 million or whatever, because like that pick is basically like held until that money is held until. So like if you offer sheet to one person, and then the team decides to match it, and then that would free up a second round pick that you could turn around and offer sheet somebody else type of thing. So just a couple things to keep in mind, but I think that sweet spot for the Sharks when it comes to the offer sheets here is that like anywhere between 2.34 million AAV to 4.68 million AAV. So that's what I'm focusing on right there, because I would be like, these players that I kind of picked, I think are options worth a potential second round pick for the Sharks to give up, because they are players who will, one, fit the timeline, two, help the Sharks just be a better team this year. And that's what we're working towards, right? Yes, building a sustainable success, but we got to keep working on raising the Titanic here. We got to get this team off the mat. So let's look at two forwards here in a second. We're going to be looking at Tyson Forester and Jack Quinn, two forwards who I think are worth that second round pick for the Sharks to give up. So we'll start with that here in just a second. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving is 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I like the in-shell variety. I love hearing the satisfying crack of opening each shell. It's like snack meditation. But if you're a no-shell person, I'm not going to shell shame you. They've got plenty of different flavors. You just throw a bag in your desk at work right around 2:30. You get that snacky feeling. They got you covered there. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, before we continue, we look at the two forwards here. Do, of course, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if right now, perfect time to subscribe. We have draft profiles coming tomorrow. Our good friend Tony Ferrari joins. We continue to dive into free agents and restricted free agents and get you guys ready, all accumulating in a kind of mock off season where I kind of do what I think my career should do, which I'm sure I will get horribly wrong. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Okay. Let's start with Tyson Forester. So he is a forward with the Philadelphia Flyers. He was a former first-round pick back in the 2020 season. So yeah, he was 23rd overall in that draft class. Big boy. 6'2", 215-pound right-handed right winger for the Flyers. This season, in 81 games, he had 25 goals, 18 assists, 142 shots on goal, played 1652 average time on ice. Of course, he forced him when he's on the ice. The Flyers were outshot. They attempted 47.42% of the shot attempts, goals for 50.57%. He's projected to sign he'd be projected to sign, if he was to sign with a different team, sign a deal at 2 years at $3.97 million. This player, I think, would definitely fit what the Sharks are looking for, is a bigger player who can score 25 goals this season for the Flyers, who are also kind of in that retool area as well. Really kind of broke out this year for the Flyers, at least actually over the past 2 years. Even last year, he had 20 goals and 13 assists in 77 games. This year, 25 goals and 18 assists. And saw his ice time drop a little bit, not too much, but still kind of floating around that 17-minute mark where he's been the last couple of seasons. So for the Sharks, right, adding another big time forward, a big forward in Forester, and his shooting and scoring ability, I think would be a huge add. For the Flyers, you have a lot of cap space, right? And they could easily just offer him a long-term contract, which would make sense for them, right? So they have going into this offseason, they have about $24 million in cap space, with the roster mostly kind of rounded out here. They've got some guys who are going to be coming off the books in the next couple of seasons here. But right, really it's Forester, Peltier, and then Noah Cates, who all are RFAs and need new contracts. but you've seen the way that they have, like the Flyers have definitely kind of paid some of their younger players and kind of try to lock some of these guys up to longer term deals. They also do have Cam York, who also needs a contract as well. But so I could see it, but I think the Flyers would be a team that would probably try to lock him up long term. Like let's just try to, pay you 6 years for whatever six type of, maybe they, like that's kind of what I would assume that they do, especially a guy who's been a 20 goal scorer the past couple seasons. But just one guy I wanted to look at here is, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, I think it's like a home run type of thing. I think if the Sharks were to sign him, it would be a home run. I think it's like a 3 as a likelihood, just because I think the Flyers would just match whatever you do, because I think they do really like Tyson Forester. So another player who former first round pick here, and that's Jack Quinn. So Quinn, 6'1", 185 pounds, 23 years old. This last season scored in 74 games, had 15 goals, 24 assists with 123 shots on goal. Played a little under 15 minutes of average time on ice. Corsi for 48.04, goals for 45.78. He's projected as, if he were to sign with another team, at 2 years at $3.2 million. Jack Quinn is another former first-round pick. So he was, I believe he was 8th overall, actually, in that same 2020 draft class. So he also played in the OHL as well with the Ottawa 67s. He's been a guy who, like, last year really kind of knocked him off. He had an Achilles tear and missed like a good chunk of games. If I recall correctly, I think he hurt himself against the Sharks, if I do recall correctly, in the 23-24 season. I want to actually say that might have been Muka Madulin's debut with San Jose. But anyway, or his NHL debut, sorry. This season bounced back 74 games, 15 goals, 24 assists, like I said. So this could be a player who is, kind of a year removed from that Achilles injury, who, he's, even before he got hurt, he had scored, 14 goals, like basically the similar numbers as an age 21 player. So he could be a player now that he's a full year removed and he's not rehabbing this offseason, could be kind of ready to make a big jump for whichever team. With Buffalo, right? You never know, man. So they're a team that they've got about $21 million in cap space. They do have some decisions that they're going to have to make, because you have JJ Peterka, who's, I know a lot of people would be very excited about him, but he falls in that you have to trade a number 1 pick. And I'm not trading a top 10 pick for JJ Peterka. I like JJ Peterka a lot. Well, not only you have to trade a top 10 pick and then sign him to a big contract. So I think, though, Quinn could be a guy who kind of gets squeezed out unless you have Bowen Byram, who may be available, maybe not. You have, like I said, you have Quinn, you have Peterka, you have Tyson Kozak, Ryan McLeod. They have, and then you got to go find a backup goalie. Whether it's a free agent or if they bring in Devin Levi, who also needs as an RFA as well. So there's a lot of kind of options and decisions that the Buffalo has to make here. So for them, if maybe they don't feel like Quinn is ever going to be the guy that they drafted 8th overall, recouping a high second round pick, not too bad. And I think for the Sharks, right, you're betting on the talent and the upside, and hopefully he can get back to being who he was kind of projected to be before the injury. And now that he's a full season removed from the injury at a very reasonable cost of, 2 years at $3.2 million. Like, if it works out, great. Then you can kind of deal with a new contract in a couple of years. And if it doesn't, you swung on a guy who, with the upside, who does have very high upside here. So, I think of a likelihood on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being like this thing is happening, I'd put this at like a 5 as like a possibility of something to happen here, right? It makes a lot of sense for both parties. We know the Sabres want to shake things up and try to kind of go in a little bit different direction as they try to finally break their playoff curse. Maybe a fresh start for Quinn, who, coming off an injury, and like, how often do we see players leave Buffalo and then turn into something? Or like, that could definitely happen with Jack Quinn. So he's a guy who I think would be interesting to potentially add. And again, I think a second round pick is more than fair for Quinn and his value right now. And again, who I think there's a lot of potential upside there. So we're going to switch over to the blue line and look at a couple players here who I think potentially could make sense for the San Jose Sharks. So we'll get to that in just 1 second. All right, before we look at the hardliners, Keegan, I do, of course, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, we're going to be talking about Dylan Samberg first. So Samberg playing for the Winnipeg Jets. Big boy. Big boy. If you like big boys, Samberg's your guy. 6'4", 216-pound defenseman. A little bit older. He's 26. He's projected to sign a 4-year deal at $4.4 million. So much closer to the edge of our budget at 4.6, but still hits the budget here. This season, he played 60 games with the Jets, has 6 goals, 14 assists with 95 shots on goal, averaged 21.08, time on ice, 52.33 Corsi for, 61.29% goals for, Mamma Mia. So Samberg is a little bit of a late bloomer for the Jets. This year really kind of had his coming out party for them. So, former second-round pick, 43rd overall in the 2017 draft, where he played with Minnesota Duluth in college. Made his NHL debut in the 21-22 season. In the past couple of years has kind of been right around that 15-minute mark, and this year exploded and started playing a ton more, where he had, like I said, that 21 minutes a night. He is left-handed, so I know people are just going to shut me out from here. But I do think he would be a huge addition to the Sharks, and I think he would fit also kind of what they're looking for as a guy who can, one, not only move the puck, but also two, play defense as well here. So there is the worry, right, of kind of taking him away from what we've seen him do very well with the Winnipeg Jets, right, and their system, and having Connor Hellebuck, regular season Connor Hellebuck, does help it as well. But Samberg really, I think, found his gear, or found his niche this season for the Jets, and really I think is set himself up for a nice contract jump here. The Jets have about $25.6 million in cap space this offseason, and they do have some decisions, and a lot of decisions, to be honest here. Nikolai Ehlers and Brandon Tanev are both UFAs. Mason Appleton, also a UFA. And then you have Gabe Vilardi, who is an RFA and needs a big contract. He's been a huge addition to what they do. And then also the blue line for the Jets is pretty locked up here between, after giving Pionk a new deal, Morrissey, DeMello, Luke Shen, Colin Miller. You have a lot of these guys signed for a while. So he could be, unfortunately, a cap casualty for the Jets here. For the Jets, like, they don't have a second round pick next year, right? So getting a potential second round pick that if they want to turn around and use to, especially as you expect them to kind of be good next year, is, again, gives them some more ammo that they can use at the trade deadline as well. So, I could definitely see him re-signing, right? This is a guy that you've kind of grown and developed, and he's really starting to work out for you now. And 4.4 million isn't like too bad of a contract. So I could definitely re-sign him, but I think for the Jets, right, if you're offered a second round pick, and again, you have a lot of guys here, and like Samberg kind of fitting in for the Sharks, like on your top pairing right now, because I think you'd be one of their top pairing defensemen, would be a really interesting proposal for both teams right here, and to potentially work out. And I wonder how hard. You do also wonder with the Jets, right, and how hard it is for them to sign free agents. With maybe just keeping their own guy and saying thank you so I would probably put this like a 4 on the possibility. Again, like I'm not going to rate any of these guys super high, but it would be, yeah, I think this would make a lot of sense for both parties here, or for I guess all three parties between Samberg, where like Samberg's never gonna be the guy on the Jets, and he'd have an opportunity to be the guy on the Sharks. For the Sharks, adding a talented player that a little bit older at 26, but it still kind of fits his core. Again, a little bit of a late bloomer here, and then for the Jets, getting a high second round pick that they can potentially pair with their own first round pick if they want to go be aggressive at the trade deadline. Makes some sense. So the last guy here, playing with the Colorado Avalanche, Sam Bolinsky, 5'11", 190 pounds, also 26. This season he scored in 76 games. He had 5 goals, 10 assists, 115 shots on goal. Played just about 16 minutes average time on ice. 52.46 Corsi for, 47.76 goals for. He's projected to sign a 3-year deal at $3.2 million. And he is right-handed. Please rejoice if you're looking for a right-handed defenseman. So Bolinsky is a undrafted free agent, played with Cornell. He turns 27 this summer here. So again, a little bit older guy, but hasn't really, was played a lot of NHL games. He doesn't even have 100 NHL games under his belt. 25 points in basically 100 NHL games at this point. Has been playing, saw his ice time go up this year, playing kind of a full season. The big question with Bolinsky, right, is you're doing this on third pair minutes, right? Because you have Cale Makar, you have Sam Girard. Like we know the Avs defense is stacked, right? So would that translate if you're going from 16 minutes a night to 20 minutes a night? So there is a big question there on kind of like the translatability, right, for a guy like this, and where you have to now be the guy instead of playing third pairing minutes. We know the Avs are gonna have they're gonna have a very interesting off season. They have $8.7 million in cap space, with a lot of decisions here. So you have, of course, Jonathan Drouin and Brock Nelson, both as free agents. And then you have Brian Lindgren, Tucker Pullman, Eric Johnson, who can just sign for like a, Bettman, and Sam Bolinsky, all as RFAs. So as this team tries to really figure out, like kind of reload this off season, do they want to pay a third pairing defenseman $3.3 million or whatever it's going to be? Or would they rather just kind of pay somebody? Like, I think what made Bolinsky so great is because you were only paying him $850,000 to play third pair, like play very good third pairing minutes for you. So there is some rumors that they might look to move off Sam Girard, but like, they're going to have some decisions here to try to make everything fit. And so I don't think they would want to re-sign him, especially at that price. We know that they don't have any picks, right? For they traded all their picks this year. They basically traded all their picks for the 2026 draft. So for them getting a high second round pick because they don't have their own second round pick because they traded that to the San Jose Sharks for Mackenzie Blackwood. Would that make sense for them to do that? So I think, though, I think for the Sharks, right, it's a lot to ask for a guy who hasn't been asked to do that. It's a big stretch there to kind of go from, can you play third pairing minutes on the Colorado Avalanche where you're going to be really sheltered because you have Cale Makar and Taze and Girard in front of you, to can you do everything for us? Because we don't really have a lot of guys to do it. So, and with the way the Avs, like, maybe they look to sign him to a small 1-year deal, or maybe they just don't qualify him and you might be able to pick him up off the street. So I don't think, like, the more I think about it, I don't know, the second round pick feels really steep for a guy who, again, we don't know if he can do it at a high level, right? Or do it in kind of these bigger moments, or not bigger moments, but kind of when he's asked to kind of be the guy right now. So I would put this very low on the I guess like a 2 or a 3, just because I don't think it makes sense for the Sharks to give up a second round pick for a guy like that. But it's still someone I want to explore, kind of in that range of guys who are there. So if I had to kind of rank them, the guys I'd be most excited for, I think Forester would be the most exciting guy, but probably the least likely, because I think the Flyers will just match it. But getting the guy who could be a potential 25 to 30 goal scorer for you is pretty sick idea. So I would be really happy to do that for the next 2 years. And then I think Quinn has a nice kind of blend of it's possible. Plus, I think there's a lot of untapped upside there as well. And then Samberg makes a lot of sense, but the Jets are really good at just keeping their own dudes. And I think Bolinsky, I just think there's too much unknown, and like I worry about the projectability with him. So, but just want to look at some guys in that range there. So as we play the RFA game, so we'll be back tomorrow. Do another draft profile with our good friend Tony Ferrari. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.